welcome to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. This is your host, Scotty B. My next guest embodies the man of steel. He's a marathon runner, Spartan, and his podcast, Breaking the Barrier, will amaze you. As a mentor and coach, he's inspiring, and as Superman, he's a symbol of hope, adding positivity, charisma, strength, confidence, and humor to the cosplay arena. You will want to follow and appreciate his journey. With enthusiasm and energy for which he seems to have more than the Kryptonian himself, please welcome the mild-mannered podcaster, actor, cosplayer, and athlete, Melbourne Superman, to the show.
Oh, wow, that was an introduction. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's amazing to connect with you, being as far apart and even in different seasons at this time, you being in Australia. Just really appreciate being able to have you on the show and everything that you're doing in cosplay. It's all very cool. It's all very amazing. And yes, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love that about, sometimes we can fall into traps of technology, but I love the fact that technology allows us to, connect with the distance that we have between us. Of course, I'm from America, but being now in Australia, that technology is a really good thing when you want to reach out.
So yes, it's interesting. I guess if you'd like to share a little bit about your backstory and your origin, I usually call it an origin story. What led you to becoming Clark Kent and Superman? Were there other choices? And how did you get into cosplay? And if you'd like to, tell us about your journey to Australia.
So when I was a kid, I think starting with Superman and Clark Kent, the first movie that I ever remember watching was, of course, Superman, the movie with Christopher Reeve. And, Christopher Reeve's always been my Superman. And I've always been more of like a film and television Superman fan, though I've delved into the comics and, of course, the animated films and shows and everything. But, I was the kid that when that John Williams score came on, which is brilliant, I had the towel wrapped around me like a cape running around my lounge room as that music played, and I just always felt empowered whenever that was on. Those movies, the Christopher Reeve movies, they were one of the reasons why I got into acting. I loved the films. Say what you will about Superman 3 and 4, I enjoyed them.
I liked 3. 3 was
yeah, well, 3 was fun.
Great.
3 was fun. You need a little bit of fun in there.
To be honest, I haven't seen 4 enough times to really. It's been a long time since I've seen it's the Quest for Hope, I think, or the Quest for Peace.
Quest for Peace.
Quest for Peace. Yes. See, that's how long it's been.
No, that's fair.
But 3 was great. Richard Pryor.
And so it was just a fun. It was a fun. They did it because they could. That kind of movie, I think. Yeah. So I loved the acting. I loved the storylines. I just loved the idea of Superman. And then as I grew up, I started to understand a little bit more about what Superman stood for or had the potential to stand for and what we can all become. So for me, that Superman has always been, or Supergirl, for those of you who go in that direction, it's something that can be inside of us all. We are all humans. We're flawed, as is Clark. But we have the potential for the greatness that is Superman or Supergirl, and I love that. Over the years, Superman has always been there. I've fallen in love with the characters like Batman and Indiana Jones and Darth Vader and all of them. The Doctor. I'm a geek, but Superman's always been the one constant. And I started cosplaying, quote and unquote, cosplaying when I was. As far back as I can remember. I've always had costumes. I've always tried to get the higher end costumes, and I've only started bringing it into the public eye more recently. And it's just been a really, really fun journey. So it's been great. And as far as what brought me into Australia, as you know, I'm an actor. I took a break from acting about, how old am I? 16 years ago or so, to teach ballroom and Latin dance. And so I taught that for 10 years, and that's what brought me into Australia. So I came here 10 years ago. I've been here ever since. That's the long-winded answer. Apologies for that.
Oh, see, and I didn't even mention that in the introduction, but you are as a dancer as well.
I play one on stage sometimes.
So you may very well be a triple threat then. You can act, dance, and sing.
I do sing. That's where I spent most of my acting life in musical theater. So that's it's only been in the last maybe 4 or 5 years that I've gotten into film and television. But yeah, musical theater was always where. As a matter of fact, my first role in Australia was the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. I point back there. You can't see it, but that's the original prop that I used. If you can see that mask back there,
Oh yeah, yeah, hanging on the wall there. Yep.
I stole it. I stole it from I stole it from the production after closing night.
Well, it's having one is always nice. When you've done theater long enough, you do kind of nick the props every so often, just as momentums. I still have a wooden heart that we used for the Wizard of Oz as the Tin Man. I took it. I just wanted to have a keepsake, I guess, too.
Well, that's it. It's just like one of those things where you're just like, you're probably not going to use it again, and if you are, you can probably make another one. I mean, I know that that's just for everybody out there listening. It's not okay to steal, but
Well, and speaking of making another one or trying to get something back, you actually mentioned, I think it was it was recently. You mentioned that you lost your Superman suit for a few years, your cosplay for Superman. That was the original, like that was the Reeve suit, I think,
hmm,
and that you actually got it back from the person that you sold it to originally.
yeah.
So, how does Reeve stand out as Superman, besides being the tallest of the bunch? And is it a role for life?
For Christopher Reeve, I think he's the embodiment of Superman, right? I think anybody over the age of uh, 25 or 30, when you say Superman, they're going to think of Christopher Reeve. I mean, Henry Cavill's great, Dean Cain was great, Tom Welling was awesome as Clark Kent, George Reeves, of course, the original, Kirk Allen even. But when you say Superman, you automatically think Christopher Reeve, and I think on and off the screen, he was an amazing persona. He was the tallest one, larger than life. It's symbolic there, and even in that face of tragedy when he went down and he was injured from the fall, he kept pushing. He kept bringing that embodiment of Superman. I mean, he was an amazing humanitarian. He was making really good, amazing gains in the research that he was doing. I mean, he was just about walking in swimming pools before he died, and with his injury, it's just amazing what his determination was like for that betterment of the quality of life. I mean, I think he's the only celebrity that I remember crying when he passed, I think.
Hmm.
I don't think I've ever cried for a celebrity. But yeah, he's just, I think he will always go down in Superman, and he's in history as Superman. He's done some amazing things. I mean, Noise is Off, Somewhere in Time, the other one, Death Trap. I love them all, but I think he'll always go down in history as Superman. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, but I think it is what it is.
Well, and I think he wore the role very well,
Yeah.
and I guess just comparing it to something like Obi-Wan Kenobi with Sir Alec Guinness being an award-winning actor, and then moving into that part, and I don't think he really liked it because
Mm,
he knew it was going to follow him around forever, and that
yeah.
people would just know him for that, even though he'd done so many other things. But I think that Christopher Reeve, he he didn't have a problem with being Superman. He carried it very well, and I think there's part of him in that role and part of the role in him. It just seemed like a really good fit, not typecast necessarily, but just that he appreciated doing it. You could
Absolutely.
tell, definitely.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, even when you watch the original screen tests of when he was auditioning, you just saw how excited he was. I mean, like, it's just, yeah, he always wore it with pride, I think. And with any role like that, especially Superman, I mean, you always hear about the Superman curse and everything, but I think he was one of the few that took the role, ran with it, and you're right, really appreciated where he came from.
Yes, yes. I'd like to take just a moment to talk about your journey with fitness and just the different things that you do. Of course, you have the podcast that we mentioned and that I've listened to, Breaking the Barrier, which is
Thank you.
it's just great. It's very inspirational, and I like the candor, the relationship that you have with your co-host, and just the things that you talk about, and the way that you talk about fitness and nutrition, and just the consistency and the many details that you share with everyone on the podcast. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your fitness journey and how it has changed you, and just how you arrived at the consistency and the discipline of of doing everything that you've done?
Sure. So, I mean, being an actor most of my life, I mean, my fitness has always sort of been in the back of my mind. Well, my body image has always been in the back of my mind. I've not always been fit. And in high school, I was not, um, quote unquote, morbidly obese, but I was certainly a bit of a chubby high schooler. And I was getting into acting around that time, so it started. I started figuring out, well, I better kind of get in shape. So it all started with Taibo. I don't know if anybody even remembers Taibo with Billy Blanks, the kickboxing craze back in the 90s. And that's how I started to get healthy. Moving past that and into college, I went to a musical theater conservatory, and my relationship with food and exercise started really poor, started to really get really bad.
Mhm.
And so I went from, chubby to anorexic to bulimic to trying every kind of exercise and diet program that you can. And those two words I don't necessarily like, exercise and diet. Um, trying all those programs that you can think of, and I yo-yoed, man. Like, I was at one point, I think my lowest, I was like 130 pounds, 120, 130 pounds. My heaviest, I was around 240, which 240 was a significant number for the podcast. But uh, but yeah, so it was never something that I was able to kind of hone in on. And probably in the past, I mean, it ended me up in the hospital. It wasn't good. I knew at one point that something had to change when a nurse told me if I kept up this lifestyle, I was going to die. So that's when I started to really try to focus on something positive, something that could be consistent. So I looked at bodybuilding and I looked at weightlifting a little bit more seriously. I never got into, you know, really hardcore bodybuilding, but that kind of structure sort of led me in. It started to lead me into a little bit better of a place. I was still struggling with it, and probably
Mhm.
up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I started working with other people. Now, in this time, I had been personal training as well. And looking back, it's just amazing to me that I was able to do that because I was having such a bad relationship with food and exercise myself. So basically, about 5 years ago, I started working with somebody myself. And in the past 5 years, I've had a couple of trainers. This guy, Martin, another guy, Paul James, PJ, and they have really helped me to figure out a different mentality, different lifestyle. It's like changed everything, especially with PJ in the last couple of years, who's become more of a, kind of like a mentor and a life coach and a friend. And it's just been, it's shifting that mentality from I just want to get from A to B and look good on this day to, well, I want to have a healthy lifestyle. That helps put you into a much better place. And then it just does become the consistency, and the way that you get from A to B and stay there is that consistency, is that discipline, is that changing of a mentality of your lifestyle, because there's so many things, as I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows, especially if they're in cosplay. There's a lot of, I'm sure, body image issues there. And I'm not saying that you need to have any certain type of body type for cosplay, large, small, tall, short, whatever you want to be. You can cosplay whatever you want. You're good enough. Just always know that you are good enough, and you always will be.
Yes,
But
cosplay is
yeah,
for everyone. We always
absolutely.
say that, but I feel like health is very important for everyone too.
Yeah.
And I know, that I might draw some heat for that comment, but that's okay. I believe in it, and I've always, for many years, I've supported the health and fitness community, um, particularly overseas, actually in South Korea and Australia, of all the places.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's just very important. But you do mention discipline, very, very important to stay consistent and to try and be internally motivated by everything that you're trying to do with training and nutrition, especially if you want to do something like marathons or Spartan races, which you
Mm-hmm.
have.
Yeah, and those are great goals. So, I mean, for me, I always have something on the calendar. Of course, it's been hard right at the moment because all the races and everything have been canceled. But in a normal situation, I have something on the calendar, and that's a goal. I have I always have short-term goals there, like my marathons or my Spartan races, and it's it's tough to train for both of those things at the same time because they're so very different. Whereas marathon training, when I know that I have to run 26.2 miles, or 42.2 kilometers for those using that system, it's more about putting the hours and the time on your legs rather than for something like a Spartan getting in there and doing more of that high intensity interval, doing more of that strength training. So I always have those short-term goals, and it keeps me accountable for what I want to do. And from those short-term goals, I figure out my why. So my why is very important. That's something that I always preach like a lot, as I'm sure you've heard on my podcast.
Hmm.
Your why can't just be something simple like I want to look good in the summer. That's a great goal, but it's not. I mean, already I can hear that and say, okay, well, that's great, but what about after summer? And so you've got to have those whys. So a good why would be, well, I want to live a healthy lifestyle so that I can spend, quality time with my family. So it's a little bit more open-ended. So I think the why is very, very much important. And so for me, my why is living that healthy lifestyle. My why is never going back to, thinking of exercise as a punishment for binge eating or as an excuse for binge eating. Um, uh, so yeah, so basically everything I do is surrounded by my why.
Yes, and I really appreciate the way that you put your why in so many words. But the format is blank so that blank or blank in order to blank. It's there's a lot of thought that goes into that. My the person that has inspired me as far as thinking about strong why is Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. But he has a number of books, and one of them is The Infinite Game, which is relatively new, very thought-provoking book, but that you focus more on those long-term goals, and that it's great to climb up Mount Everest, but what do you do after you're done with that? Climb it
Exactly.
again? Like how does it work? So having the structure and having that persistence in your mind to be able to continue to achieve more or to have it be about something a little bit more intrinsic than just being in shape, looking good, and making sure that cosplay fits in the right places. Um,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly. And
all
look,
it's all fine, but
exactly.
yes.
And you hit it right on the head about advocating for a healthy lifestyle before. Like, look, I'm all about that. Like, I'm not. I would rather see people be healthy, and if they want to use cosplay as part of that, great. Like, I mean, I would be lying if I said that, cosplay isn't a motivation for me to stay healthy right now and to make sure that I, am in the best shape of my life. Of course, there's the acting. You have to, be ready to do a self-test, and you can't be feeling crappy about yourself because that affects your performance. It's a great tool to use. It is a great goal to have on a road to your why.
Yes, 100% agree with that. And now you are a life coach, and mindfulness is very important to you. I could talk all day about my go-tos as far as Simon Sinek and Tom Bilyeu and now Sonny Leonard Doozy. as far as people out on the YouTube channel. But do you see a need for mindfulness in the cosplay community from what you've observed?
Social media is, chock full of things that can cause anxiety, and cosplay is so not an exception. Look, because I treat my social media as, yes, it's fun, but I also treat it as a networking and opportunity platform, right? Like, because I love
Mhm.
meeting new people, I love creating opportunities, and from in words that you have used on your podcast before, I love to create an opportunity to possibly create some sort of offer, whether that offer is, collaborating, or, show up to this charity event, or let me do some fan art of you, or let me flat out sponsor you, whatever. So that can come with a lot of anxiety, even something simple as knowing that you need to get onto your social media platforms and post or comment or like or reply, did I reply to that comment? Have I liked enough posts today? Is my post good enough? What if I don't get a lot of likes? That can all create a space for anxiety. And I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody, but it certainly does increase that risk. And so, yeah, so the best way to try to fight that is using that mindfulness, even if it's like a few minutes a day. Like for me, I don't always get a chance to have, 30 or 40 minutes to practice mindfulness. But what I'll definitely do every day without fail is I'll take my phone, put it in another room, go outside if it's a nice day, sit in the sun for 5 minutes and just be. I just focus on my breath. Any thoughts that come into my head, I will acknowledge them, and then I'll do my best to let them go. And even if it's only 3, 4, 5 minutes a day, it can make a difference. It makes you feel a little bit more charged and grounded, and it can just let go some of that stuff. Because the amazing thing about life today is social media, but the biggest problem about life today is social media. So it's a fine balance, and I think mindfulness really helps. It's an easy, well, it can be easy. It's a free and cheap and a easy way to chill out for a bit. I mean, I
Mhm.
know that I've spent hours and hours and hours. I've got like 4 different social media platforms on Instagram alone, and so I know that if I'm, yeah, and I think probably most cosplayers have at least two. I feel like a lot of cosplayers have their cosplay account and their personal account, and
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
going back and forth, yeah, I think that there's a real need to just be in the moment and chill out for a bit.
I agree with all of that. I mean, I usually call it the dopamine hit, which cosplay, it gives you such a huge hit of that because there's so many different ways to interact
Mm,
with people. There's a lot of, I think the community at large does more with shout outs and calling attention to groups and other people than do other industries. So and cosplayers are usually the first to know about something that's going on. Like
yeah,
if you need the news, just watch people's stories because they will tell you if there is a forest fire or if there is something bad happening in the world somewhere.
that's right.
They always know and they always bring attention to it. So yeah, the level of anxiety just it skyrockets and it really is. It's a lot. They juggle a lot. I guess some of the things that I've mentioned and have mentioned on the cast are just it's the everything industry
Right.
that you do. You have to be in so many different things at once. We're podcasting, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we are putting all of these things out. It's graphic design, it's everything and anything. Not to mention you have to build the cosplay and probably work a job or two
Yeah.
to afford the hobby. Um, but yeah, it's a lot. It can be very overwhelming.
I do want to make clear to everybody that I absolutely love cosplay, the community. I love it. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but that's not anything that the cosplay community itself does. It's just the pressure that we put on ourselves. I mean, I have found also that the cosplay community is the most supportive and welcoming. And I mean, look, there are, of course, those people out there that get a little bit too keen and message you a little bit too much. And inappropriately, or there are also the people that get a little bit catty because maybe your costume's better than theirs or whatever the hell. 99.99% of the cosplay community is probably one of the most extraordinary things that I've ever witnessed. Just support wise alone.
There are, yeah, there are, areas, and just like really any industry or any community has, you have your dark spots,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of good things going on, and we really do try to bring light to that as part of the show to see, there's so much going on with people. It's called Sanctuary for a reason, and I do bring this up from time to time that I really do want this to be a safe space for people to share their thoughts and insights and not feel like there's a lot of judgment coming from the podcast, but also just not from the community that listens to it at large. I think that's very important for people to be themselves, to have that authenticity and not feel, even though we're kind of borrowing everything, not feel that we have to be like everyone else or do everything exactly the same.
Sure.
Um, Switching gears a little bit, would you like to tell us about your podcast, Breaking the Barrier?
Sure. All right. So, okay. So Breaking the Barrier, I started, just about 2 years ago, I think. I think we're heading into 2 years now, which is cool. So we're about 90 episodes in, or 90 official episodes. With the podcast, I also do mini episodes, usually once a week. So there's probably, I don't know, like over 200 clips that you can listen to, 90 official episodes. So basically, it came from my first marathon and what I learned. So my first marathon, I ran it a few years ago. And so there's a quote by Emil Zatopek, and it goes, if you want to run, run a mile. If you want to change your life, run a marathon. And it's absolutely true, because when I was training for that marathon, now I was going through some tough times. I was going through a breakup and of like a 6-year relationship, which was crazy, but I kept pushing myself to run that marathon because it gave me, and this kind of goes back to my talk about goals. A marathon is a great short-term goal with a life-altering process. So I basically did like a 12-week sort of crash course into running. Now, before this, I'd always run, but it was mostly treadmill running. So marathon running kind of took me outside and into long distance. And I loved what I found out about myself, just how I could push through, going that 100%, finishing that marathon, man. It was such an amazing experience. Like, I highly recommend to anybody listening, because you can, like, unless there's some sort of specific injury that will stop you, anybody can run a marathon. You got to put in the training, but I absolutely recommend it, if nothing else, because just the feeling of accomplishment. And so when I did that, I felt like I wanted to share that process with the world and what I learned about myself, and trying to and use that to try to motivate others. So I started that podcast, and the first 60 episodes were all about topics from running to well-being to fitness, mental health, that sort of thing, and what I was learning on my own journey, what I had learned on my journey, and how these lessons that I was learning can translate into life. And I'd use running as a major focus, and I would use the things that I was learning from running to reflect onto what you could bring into your life. And so that was the first 60 episodes, and it was very much, very structured, very, let's talk about this, and this today. And then the latest 30 episodes, that's when Zach joined me. So last year, I went through a really, really difficult time, and I needed to step back from having to do so much because I was struggling with something very specific. And Zach, who had been a friend of mine, but also a listener, because obviously I told the audience about it. I didn't want to just leave them high and dry. I put out a mini episode saying I'm stepping away, and he contacted me. He said, "Dude, I love what you're doing with the podcast, and I don't want it to lose momentum. Do you mind if I take over?" I was like,
Wow.
"Okay." Because we had talked about, like, he had always had ideas that he wanted, and he had been a podcast guest, of course. And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, man, I just, if nothing else, I appreciate the hell out of what you just said to me. Go for it. Here's the music. Here's the basic structure of it. You know the basic structure. And so he took over for, I think, 10, no, just under 10 episodes on his own while I did my own. I just regrouped with myself. And it was just amazing to listen to. And we decided that when I came back, he wouldn't leave. So I trapped him. I said, dude, I love what you've done with it. I love the idea of us getting together and just having a weekly or, you know, every other weekly chat about, you know, running news or training or how to stay motivated, and go from that dot structure to let's just talk, and whatever comes up comes up. And it's actually been a really interesting experience for me, because if you listen to the first 6 episodes, it's very I'm very much reserved, and not reserved, but I don't certainly get as passionate as I do with some of the episodes that I do with Zach. Um, so we just have a lot of fun, and it's just a great time. So it's about finding motivation to become a better version of yourself. It's about learning new things, and it's about having fun.
Yes, it's really about having fun and trying to get out of that sort of shell that you put yourself in when you get on the microphone or in front of a camera.
That's it.
It's not easy to do, but it can uncover some things, and you can find out that you actually like it. Um, I guess it's funny that you mentioned the first 6 episodes of your podcast and going back and going, okay, and coming through that, and now with Zach, having more open discussions and being able to go back and forth where you don't have that structure necessarily. And I look back on my first couple of episodes, and the only thing really that goes through my mind is, why have so many people downloaded this one and not the later ones?
I
Like,
know, right?
I'm
Like,
like,
and
they always go back to the first one. Like,
it's
oh.
awful. Like and I got to tell you, I'm an awful person, because I actually put in I changed the episode title of the very first episode. I said episode 1, blah blah blah, and in parentheses I was like, they get better after episode 5. Because you're right, that everybody wants to start from that beginning, and but I guess that's also a good thing. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because the other day I was I was looking. I always look at how to, make Instagram better, quote unquote. And I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder if people delete old posts so that so that they don't look like quote unquote amateurs, whatever. And I was like, let me look that up. Let me just see if that messes with your analytics or whatever. And there was a lot of people that were like, yeah, I do it just because there aren't that great. But I saw a lot of people that were like, I leave it, because when you go from that first post to your latest post, people can actually see that growth, and it's exciting to see, not only for them but for you.
Mhm.
Like, it's just a cool uh, sort of analytic to look at and be like, oh wow, that's personal growth. That's cool.
I'll probably just look back and go, I used to be ridiculous, and I've gone so far over ridiculous now, because before I used to just do like silly martial arts kicks and stuff on my Instagram feed, and now I'm just gonna full out do Dr. Fate cosplay, and we're
Nice.
just going for it. Um, but yeah, it does. It's really it's a very interesting timeline. Yeah, some people do. I know they do YouTube videos too. Like some of the older stuff that they do, they don't want it to be a part of their brand or what have you. But I wouldn't want to get rid of anything, especially not the posts that Jet Tranter liked. Um, but when
That's
when we
cool.
talk about podcasting, would you have any advice, or would you have anything that you would like to share or say about a cosplayer who might be interested in getting into podcasting versus getting onto YouTube or Twitch?
Yeah, look, I'd say, look, I'm on YouTube as well, but that's new. Well, I have my actor page on YouTube. I have just started breaking the barrier on YouTube, where I just put the videos of Zach and I talking up, and it's only like, I think, 4 episodes up there. But I'd say just do it. Like, find something that you care about and talk. I mean, eventually you'll get to a point where you can network get guests, and people are going to care about what you care about if they see that passion's coming through. And don't, if they don't care about it, who cares? Like, just talking about what you like will bring that much more positivity to your life. And
Mhm.
I think if you're starting out, yeah, podcast, YouTube and Twitch are obviously great platforms. But if you're just starting out, podcasting is so easy. Like, you don't have to worry about video editing. You don't have to worry about anything at all. If you're just a beginner, you can just get a simple recording software on your computer. I mean, most computers have mics. It's not the greatest quality, but if you're strapped for cash, you can use it. You don't need to get a fancy mic. I mean, I think my mic was like $90. I have like a Samson mic, and it sounds to me just fine. Um, and I've been using it for almost 2 years. I'll probably get a better one day, but whatever. But you can just find any platform that does, like, Anchor's a great one because once you upload on Anchor, it goes everywhere.
Mhm.
But it's just an easy way to talk, and it's you can just hit the record button, record it however you want. You can have an intro and an outro. You can not have an intro and an outro. I've heard it so many different ways. But I think if you're starting out, yeah, podcast, go for it. Once you get a little bit more, used to what you're doing and you find your footing a little bit, then yeah, hit YouTube, hit Twitch. Twitch has definitely got some awesome programs for, if you get enough views or you get enough followers or whatever, you can become an affiliate. I don't know what that means, but I see it happening to people, so that sounds good. Um, but yeah, I think podcast, I think everybody will be I think you said it on one of your last episodes. I think everybody will be podcasting or have a podcast in like 5 years. Um,
I might have. I think podcasts are like the new blog.
yeah,
Like if you have a podcast, it's almost like having a blog now, and
exactly.
they don't you don't necessarily have to go on marathon podcasts. I like to listen to everything and everything from really short ones to really really long ones. Coin and Concede is actually one of my favorites. Stitch and Seam, which I've actually been a guest for. They have a really nice cosplay podcast, very informative, and they have a good format. But they vary their time. It's not like you have to go on and drop so many facts for 3 hours.
Oh,
You can do 5 minutes. No,
that's
no,
it.
no big deal.
I mean, Joe
Totally.
DeSena, the CEO of the Spartan races, does a podcast, and some of his episodes, this is Joe DeSena, are like 5 minutes long. You don't just talk. I mean, some of my episodes are an hour and a half. Some of them are 15 minutes. That's a
Hmm.
great thing. And for me, and I'll give this advice to anybody: just try not to care so. I mean, try not to care so much about your download, especially in the beginning, because it's more about you. It's going to make you much more positive. Again, going back to what I said before, to talk about something that you enjoy. The downloads will come, but I will say, don't get into podcasting because you want to be famous or you want to go viral. Because the harsh reality is everybody has, like, everybody has a podcast. Goddamn Anchorman has a podcast. Ron Burgundy actually has a podcast. So don't do it if that's why you want to do it, but do it if you just want to talk about something that you care about.
Yes, and 3,200 is the magic number if anybody cares. If you get that many downloads, then you're supposedly in the top 10%. But
Nice.
that's it's a little harder than it sounds.
Yes, very. It's
But
tricky.
yeah, it's not really about that. It's for me, social media in general. It's not about the likes and the follows. It's about the sentiment. It's about what you can share, what you can learn, and those 4 areas that you can reside in as a coach, a mentor, a friend, and a cheerleader.
Mm,
I'm stealing that from someone else, but
fair.
I do believe in it very much. One thing that I would like to talk about, maybe quickly, but we'll see. You are an actor,
Mm,
and it's just amazing. I'm definitely not trained or anything like that. I appreciate acting. I appreciate the craft and everything that goes into it because it is really difficult to do. Um, would you mind telling us a little bit about acting? And would you share your thoughts about conventions and if there's anyone that you would ever like to meet going to a convention?
Yeah. So okay. So well, with acting, I'll keep this brief because I know I've probably already talked your ear off about acting already. But basically, yeah, I've been acting since I was like 13, 14 years old, from stage musicals to film and television. I've been really lucky to be consistent. That is my main form of income. Certainly, I'm not a Tom Cruise level income earner, but it keeps me from day to day. And yeah, sometimes I'm not sure where the next paycheck's coming or the next bill, how that's going to get paid, but I'm happy. Sometimes I'm stressed, but I'd rather be stressed worrying about where that bill is going to get paid rather than going to a job every day that I hate. I've been doing that all my life. My agent is based in Australia. My manager is based in LA. I've been having really good luck with them. And I did a show, A Few Good Men. I played Daniel Kaffee. That's the Tom Cruise role for those of you playing along at home. And when I did that, it kind of really made me realize how much, yes, I love musicals, but how much I really enjoy just the truth telling, like just getting in there and doing a scene and analyzing it and being truthful and honest rather than big and open. I love my musicals, but that's the show that really made me want to get into film and television, more truthful acting. And I've loved it ever since. And in terms of meeting somebody at a con, dude, I'd love to meet I'd love to meet Brandon Routh. I'd love to meet Tom Welling. I don't know that I would ever go and meet them in one of my suits because, again, for me, meeting somebody like that is more of a potential networking thing as an actor, and I'd want to present myself in that way.
Mhm.
Not not that anything will ever come out of meeting an actor at a con, but you know, I always have it in my head that this is potentially somebody I'm going to work with one day. Fingers crossed. I know that might sound naive, but you know what? Maybe it's not. Um, but I think if I had to pick one person to meet, and I don't think that he does too many cons, but it's Harrison Ford.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
dude, Indiana Jones, man, Han Solo. Um, dude, I love Harrison. He's probably my favorite actor. Tom Cruise is up there as well, but I think Harrison Ford, favorite actor. I mean, the dude's made an awesome career in the past like 50 years just being a grumbling old man. Even when he was like 30, he was just like a grumbling old man, and it just has worked for him, and it's awesome to watch. Um,
No,
and I,
Clear and Present Danger. I
oh,
mean, yeah, there's just such a long list of great films. I mean, he's the American president.
yeah,
That it's I don't know how that movie's received anymore, but um, I always think of him as like the president.
yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
funny.
it's
I think that
amazing.
movie's gotten a little bit of flack, but I love that movie. It's like, get off my plane. It's like, all right, I'm gone. So good, man. I could watch Harrison Ford movies like all day.
Yes, and it's a pretty wide range. I mean, you think about Han Solo, but even that character grew over time. He didn't bring it back exactly where he left it,
No,
so many years ago. He grew with it, and that's probably why of the new Star Wars movies, I liked the first one the best.
yeah,
I really liked Episode 7 out of
mm,
the latest trilogy, and I think a lot of that was Harrison Ford for me.
absolutely. I mean,
Um,
there's so many actors that just have their thing, but like you look at him, and yeah, you go from Han Solo then to Han Solo now, then you go to something like Regarding Henry,
mm,
then you go to something like The Fugitive, or uh, that movie that he did with Liam Neeson where he played the Russian sub commander. U-571? Maybe that one? Maybe not.
maybe,
No, maybe not.
uh,
Uh,
right around Patriot Games, right around
yeah,
there.
yeah, somewhere in
Um,
there.
Hunt for
They
the Red
were all, I mean,
October type of
yeah,
movies. Yeah.
just, just the range, man. And yeah, I agree with you. I think The Force Awakens for me was my favorite one. I don't really, I didn't really mind the other two because it's Star Wars, man. I love Star Wars. I don't care. Just same with Superman. No matter how bad version is, or the movie is, or the show is. I'm like, I don't care, man. If it's Superman, if it's Star Wars, if it's Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, man, I loved it. I don't care.
Yes, although if I'm honest with myself, I like The Last Crusade the most.
That's my favorite too.
And I think it's just a great, you know, seeing Sean Connery and Harrison Ford in the same movie, even if it does get just a little bit campy here and there, but that's Indiana Jones.
I know.
It's fantastic.
It's
I appreciate it, and I didn't
it's
really think.
camp without turning it into a Simpsons episode.
Yes, that's pretty much Simpsons in a nutshell. Um, you have a link in your Instagram to the Starlight Children's Foundation.
Mm.
And I was wondering if you might be able to share a little bit about the foundation and why it is important to support a charity such as this one.
Sure. So Starlight, the Children's Foundation, is something that's here in Australia. I believe it is global as well, but it helps the betterment of the lives of children, in particular sick and traumatized children. It's an amazing cause because, you know, we can all remember back to when we were kids, and whether you had, you know, a great childhood or a lousy childhood or whatever's in between, you can think back to something that you loved, something that you wanted, or something that you could have made better. And if you have that opportunity to do that for somebody, like if you can do it, absolutely do it. I think not to put a cliche up, but the children are our future. I mean, we have to invest into the lives of children so that the future of humanity is worth anything. I think putting into a charity like that is just so important. And you like with any charity, you give what you can. You know, you give $1, give $1,000, whatever you have. It's just an amazing thing. I'm working right now, and this is actually a shout out to any cosplayers in Melbourne who want to get involved with an organization called Manor Lakes Halloween, which they do this every year. It's a big event. I don't know how they're going to virtually run it this year, but they're putting a call out to any Melbourne-based or, well, Victoria, Australia-based cosplayers that can get involved. And so Manor Lakes Halloween, you can find them on Instagram. And it's just, yeah, it's really important, I think, for us to recognize what childhood is supposed to be and how we can make it better for somebody else. They deserve it. You know, children deserve that much. You know, no child deserves to be sick or traumatized. And you know, if we can make their lives a little bit better, I think we should do it. Or
Yeah,
you know, if we can.
it's all about, you know, and a big part of cosplay is that feeling that you get when one of the kids does see you at a con and gets excited about the character. It's a really great thing, and it's great to be able to give back and to be that character and be strong for a young person going through those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
No spoilers here, but later in the season, there'll be a series of episodes where we will go into giving back. So look for that, and certainly I'll have notes for the Starlight Children's Foundation so that everyone can check it out and see how to support that organization and what they do and what they stand for.
Amazing.
So great. My final question for you, sir, is a question of impact, and it is, what do you feel that cosplay impacts within you?
What doesn't it impact in me? So I think cosplay for me. Okay, I'll preface this by saying you can cosplay whoever you want, right? You can have somebody that you cosplay that you have nothing in common with, or that you feel like you have everything in common with. You know, you can cosplay somebody, it doesn't matter. I think for me, there's obviously a reflection of Superman within myself without trying to sound like a I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but trying to sound like a blank, whatever. I think that for me, trying to help people through positivity, trying to find the better quality of myself, the inner greatness, and bring it out, having the courage to put on the cape, as it were, to make somebody's life a little bit better. To, cosplay for me, it just inspires me to learn more about myself. And whether that's, I'm starting to learn Photoshop, or whether that's I'm starting to learn more about fitness and nutrition because I have to wear tights every now and then. Um, you know, Even something as specific as, you know, I do Q&As every week, and I joked about it on my story yesterday. I've just eaten and now I'm in Lycra. Like, even learning something like that, I know that there's a lot of people who go to cosplay cons and don't eat because they're so afraid of what they're going to look like in their Lycra. So, like, for me, okay, I'll experiment that with that at home. So if I know that I can eat and still look decent and passable, I'm gonna eat at a con. I'm not gonna like starve myself. It's something like that. And I think that's a whole other ball of wax. I'm sure that there are issues there um, in the cosplay community. But basically, yeah, it just it makes me push myself to new levels. It also helps me to make new connections with people. Learning about the different people that I meet. Obviously, I met you through cosplaying. Listening to your podcast, I probably would have never known existed uh, unless I specifically was in a cosplay community. Maybe I would have, because I like yourself, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, but certainly learning that it existed sooner rather than later for me has been a good thing. I've been enjoying the episodes. Um, so it impacts, you know, the education that I give to myself, what I can put out there. It helps me to see the positive in the world that we so badly need right now. There's
Yes.
so much negativity right now, and there's so many trolls, and there's so many, like, at a political level and a global level, there's just so much disagreement. And at a very specific thing, oh, you're wearing a mask, that must mean you're an idiot. Oh, you're not wearing a mask, that must mean you're an idiot. Like, there's no common ground a lot of the times, and we just need that positivity, and that cosplay community has it. I mean, yes, there's haters, yes, there's trolls, but spread the positivity, man. Like, take 5 minutes out of your day and go on to Instagram and just comment on somebody's stuff that you don't know. Just search a hashtag that you want and comment something, again, to use words that you have said, four words or more, something meaningful. Try to make somebody smile. And I think that all of that is just what cosplay can represent, what it can impact within anyone.
And I will confess I haven't been quite as diligent as I should be on that. But yes, 4 words or more. Emojis are great, but it doesn't always get the message across.
Mm.
For everything that everyone puts in their posts in the community, it's fairly fantastic, everything that they do. Um, if we have time for a short story, this will be, and sorry everyone. So recently, two people that I know, one is Allison Tabitha, one is Liz Wonder, have been promoting Reebok, the
Mm.
Wonder Woman 84 shoes, the golden shoes that came out recently, a little while ago now, from when the podcast launches. But I shared their stories, and in Allison Tabitha's picture, the one that I shared, shouting her out, I put, hashtag Reebok, and said well played, for Reebok actually to partner with her. She's amazing chameleon cosplayer, very amazing, and she shared it. She's super nice, super down to earth.
Mm.
Would never, and Liz as well. They're such good people. And the long and short is, I did get one comment back, not from Allison, but someone else, and it was this: two E's in Reebok.
Right on.
Sorry. So a million people saw that, or how many ever. But, so yes, try. Certainly, things are going to happen.
Mm.
There's going to be good days and bad days. You're going to make mistakes, but please, everyone listening, see the Melbourne Superman as an example of someone who really does shine positivity. And it just thank you so much also for being on the show, for taking the time to share your thoughts and your story. And really, I guess there's not enough words. I couldn't put it into 4 words, except that the curl looks great would be I guess the only one that I
Always
could come
there.
up with. um, where can we find you online, and how can we support you?
Yeah, so if you want to go find me on Instagram, you can find me at Melbourne Superman, just one word. If you want to check out the podcast, you can check out the podcast at Breaking the Barrier. And of course, if you want to go a step further and visit the Starlight Children's Foundation bio on my Melbourne Superman Instagram page, check that out. Basically, for every $10 that I raise, I will be running a kilometer. So I'm gonna, once I hit my goal, or if I don't hit my goal, basically at the end of October, if whatever is donated, every $10, I'll run a kilometer. I'll do it in my, depending on restrictions, I'll probably do it on my treadmill, but I'll do it in my in one of my Superman costumes, probably not one of the good ones, just because but I'll stream that for a bit. But yeah, there you go.
Yes, looking forward to it. Looking forward to everything that you're doing, and thank you so much for supporting the community, for supporting the Starlight Children's Foundation, everything that you do, and look forward to what we see from you in the future, sir. And thank you for being a part of the artwork for the podcast itself. So, Spunky
Dude,
Jays.
I gotta say, just real quick, just seeing myself holding the child, baby Yoda. I know he's not Yoda, but whatever. It was so cool. It was like it made my millennium.
Well,
So,
it was a lot of fun to put together, and yes, thank you for being the literal centerpiece. And you can see kind of behind. We were going for this one over here, if you can see it in the shot.
oh
The Heroes
yes,
in Crisis is a little
oh,
bit of the inspiration for the shot and for the show.
I was honored
But,
that you asked and honored to be part of it. So amazing.
so thank you so much for being here, and everyone for tuning in. This is the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. Scotty B saying bye-bye.